right, so we're back here on another Couch Coach Live. Got a special guest in the building, my NBA and NFL Carousel colleague, eight brethren, my guy Jordan Long from sportscoop.com. What's going on, Jordan?
Not a whole lot. Just getting ready for these playoffs to start here on Saturday. It's weird that we have a Monday night playoff game. I was never an advocate for that.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. And it's funny because I remember once upon a time, I guess everything is like kind of adjusting because I remember I want to say about 5 years ago. Matter of fact, and it's coincidentally, remember when the Saints and the Chiefs played in 2017, and that was a Sunday night game, and that used to be at that time was really like sacrilegious, like oh you playing a playoff game at 8 o'clock at night. And I think the Monday night game, I think that's definitely good. And I think how the schedule is too, because you think about it, and even I think either way you can't go wrong because even if you had the Saturday, you had a triple header, and then you would have a Sunday as a triple header as well. But it's one thing like you said, Monday it's going to add a new wrinkle to it. But I think I'm going to be curious as the years progress. Like, would it really hurt you? Like, just throwing an example. I'm the king of hypotheticals. If situation like if Arizona wins, they're on a short week now because now you think about at the end of the game is going to be pretty much it won't be midnight in LA, but in theory it'll be Tuesday by the time they kind of get themselves back versus other teams have prepared, Sunday, in the Saturday game, especially like if you had Cincinnati and Las Vegas, they played Saturday afternoon, so they got the time in between the Sunday games as well. But like you said, I'm just curious how that will affect a team in that divisional round coming off of somewhat of a shorter rest. I put it that way.
Well, that's exactly why I wasn't an advocate for it because I don't know if they're going to play. I would assume they would play Sunday because if they play Saturday, you're going on even a shorter day of rest or week of rest. So I don't know how that's going to work. I mean, it is an interesting wrinkle. Will we see it more? Who knows? We'll just have to see how this goes this year first.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely think that's this. I think this will be a good thing. And then, like I know, I definitely like that the having that Sunday night game help as well too. So you pretty much have two like primetime games, and it just adds a great wrinkle to it. And like the NFL is just king, as we all know. Like it's the greatest reality television show on the face of this earth. So it's just one of the things. Hey, and I know at first I was kind of like questioning as far, especially from a Monday night perspective. But hey, we're gonna see how it plays out. But it's gonna be interesting. And I think it probably be better because when you think about it, especially like from an East Coast perspective, because you have instead of I know last year we had games starting at 1 o'clock on Saturday, and then triple headers on both days. So it's better to stretch it out and make it like a 3-day event. I think I think they might struggle with that potentially. And I know them ESPN raised through the roof, and of course that just adds extra money to their pocket, so they'll take that.
Well, exactly, and then of course you have the Peyton and Eli broadcast that'll add more ratings. Actually, I enjoyed their broadcast because of the insight they bring to the table. So I think for sure that I'm going to end up watching that instead of the actual guys. Not that the actual guys aren't great. I just like the insight from Peyton and Eli.
Yeah, and it's something, and I think Dave and ESPN really has struck gold, especially with that. Because I'm like you when it comes like I know like for the national championship, I was watching the coaches, like all the coaches talk, and like I like that type of stuff. I'm like when it comes to that type of like football type knowledge, I'm like a sponge. It's almost like I almost feel like I need to write notes and take notes and become like a savant when I hear like these coaches, especially like you hear Peyton and Eli talk, especially Peyton talk. And it's just like you learning something. Versus, and there's no knock to Steve, Greasy or Lewis Riddick, but it's just different. It's a different type. It's a different style, and it's more so like you hanging out with your friends more so than just like it feel like it's button up when you listen to the play by play sometimes.
I definitely agree with that. I know when I first turned on Peyton and Eli, I'm like, what is this? I don't really get it. And then once I kept watching it, understanding it, I really enjoyed their perspective. Like you said, it's no knock on the actual Monday night announcers. They're just calling the game. They're giving us insight, Peyton and Eli. So, like you said, you can be a sponge. You can listen to them, figure out their strategy and how they think of the game because we've never seen that before. I mean, I know as a Bronco fan, the only thing that I know about Peyton is he would look at the defense, shout something out. I don't know what he was really looking at, and then on here you can actually see what he's looking at.
And it's like thing. The only thing I was mad he won't there for our Monday night game, which I'm just like, come on, man, why you took the week off? We needed that.
I know
We needed
exactly.
you.
I mean,
We needed you that week. But
exactly. And I got disappointed when they would take week off.
I know, right? Because I remember one time it was like, because remember I think the first couple weeks they did it, and then they stopped for like almost a month, and I'm like, no. But yeah, and
Exactly.
that's going,
I was the
yeah.
same way.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be kind of, and ESPN has done a good job when it comes to that type of stuff, especially when they have like their prime events and they have different types of angles when it comes to like broadcast. And I think they're very, that's a good thing where everybody gets an option, get choices, and the beautiful thing about it is all those ratings come together, so they competing against each other. So in all grand scheme of things, it's still going to be following the one umbrella. So very smart on their end.
It really is. I mean, it just makes me wonder if we go like to Fox Sports, if they're going to end up having to do something like that, especially when they see the ratings. Because honestly, like we've talked about, it's just a better way to watch a game to see the experts. And no offense to the actual announcers, it's just a more funner way to see how the game actually works.
Yeah, absolutely. So we gotta talk a little NFL coaching carousel, Jordan. So there's at this current moment as we are here on Wednesday, January the 12th. We at this point have 6 openings. That might be we still have an interim head coach, but he's in the playoffs. There's been rumblings in Houston that Cully might be one and done, but at this point, he is still currently the head coach. So we have 6 open spots. Obviously, we have the Vikings, the Miami Dolphins, the Jacksonville Jaguars, the New York Giants, the Chicago Bears, and Jordan, your beloved Denver Broncos. So,
Yeah.
I mean, hey, we might be there next year. So hey, you know how it is when it comes to these. We cross paths as Washington football and Denver Broncos. I always deem you guys the West Coast version of my team. So hey, it is what it is. So out of those 6 available spots, what do you see as the best available job in the NFL thus far?
I'm gonna be a little bit biased, not because I'm a Bronco fan, but I just feel like they have the best opening because of the fact you look at that defense we had. We had one of the top scoring. We had the third scoring defense in the league, 8th in total yards, passing yards allowed 8th, rushing 15th. So you look at that, and that's intriguing. Plus, I know all teams are built on do you want to win a Super Bowl? I know Denver, if we don't win a Super Bowl or even get to the Super Bowl, it's pretty much a bad year for us. But if you look at the offensive side of the ball, you do have pretty good playmakers and Noah Fant, which is our tight end. You have Cortland Sutton and Tim Patrick at wide receiver, who I think are probably the two good young players. And Jerry Judy's also in that. Plus, we have a good running back in Javonte Williams. The only thing we're missing really is a quarterback and an offensive line. But if the other job that I think is intriguing, and we've just touched on a little bit, is the Raiders job. I know they have an interim head coach with Rick Bisaccia, but let's just say they don't hire him. You're looking at a franchise quarterback in Derek Carr. Plus, they have pretty good defense. You look at their weapons on offense. I mean, it's both the AFC West jobs are pretty intriguing. That's if, of course, that the Raiders don't keep Rick Bisaccia.
Yeah. I agree. I looked at Denver and I was gonna, I was like, I looked at that situation. I like, what, that's a good situation. Obviously, with the simple fact of because I guys have $48 million. So since and you're pretty much really a quarterback away. I think that's where I think a lot of it kind of stems away. Where if you look at other teams, they have certain situations. So I look at Denver as like somewhat of an honorable mention. I think a team that I think if you and it plus it depends on the scenario, but I think ultimately I think if I'm a head coach and I literally get the keys to the Ferrari, it would got to be the Jacksonville Jaguars. I think for the simple fact of I get the number one overall pick. I have $72 billion in cap space. Even though Jacksonville may not be the most sexiest place as far as when it comes to attracting free agents, but I can probably still get bargain bargain deals when it comes to free agency. So I can get like some guys to come in if I'm if I need certain positions, and I can get somebody to come to Jacksonville potentially. And then it just depends on who is their head coach. Could that be a situation where that can that can attract the free agent? And then and I think Trevor Lawrence, I think he's another factor too, where I think when you look at these other scenarios, I look at like Minnesota, you look at what Kirk Cousins, the whole fact of he's got to play this year because you're gonna have to pay him $45 million. He's going nowhere. I don't care what no one say. Keep on saying, oh, they can get rid of him. They ain't give they are no one in there. They're not. That's to be such a cap hit. So they're gonna have to live with him. So that's gonna be another strain for whoever's in Minnesota. That's obviously when they're gonna hire the GM and the coach. Miami is still out on tour, and now you look at why Brian Flores was fired. Keep it a buck. It was the situation of him and like him, Chris Greer and Tua in that situation. So if I'm a head coach that's coming in, I gotta worry about that too because the other thing that's Chris. He's Chris Greer and Tua is tied to the hip, so so he has to be successful because a lot of people are gonna look at Chris Greer as like, well, you could have had Justin Herbert. He fell into your lap, and look what he's doing. He's a guy that's almost on the verge of a 5,000-yard seasons every year, like a prolific quarterback in this league, and then everywhere else, the Giants, I think they only got like $3 million in salary cap, and you got Daniel Jones. What you gonna do with Saquon Barkley? That's a lot of issues there. But and then also I think honorable mention too, I think is a good one. I think the Bears is also a good one as well. I think they're almost similar to like Denver in a sense, but they have the quarterback in place. But they do have, some talent on that team, and it's more so just getting the best out of Justin Fields because and the thing is they could potentially get a fresh start because that was another Ryan Pace hire, which essentially he moved up some spots, lost a draft pick this year to get a Justin Fields. So it's just, hey, they'll get that maybe that 1 year with Justin Fields, but then hey, they can say, well, maybe we can get somebody else in this draft in 2023. So, and they'll have that opportunity. So, but I think the best available is going to be Jacksonville. I think if I had the keys to the car, like if I had that power, it would be Jacksonville for me.
I do see your point with Jacksonville. You have, like you said, 72 million in cap space. You have Trevor Lawrence, who honestly is not an expensive quarterback right now. So you could potentially fill holes with a bunch of free agents. Chicago is very interesting because of Justin Fields. I think he hasn't grown in that Matt Nagy system. So it'll be depending on who they have as head coach and who they're going to plug in as offensive coordinator. We saw flashes of what he could do. They just need a team around Justin Fields.
Yep, big time. So I gotta ask you, Jordan, the $1 million question. This has been a question I've been wanting to ask since the firing on Sunday morning. Who should be the Broncos head coach? who you got? Who you got, Jordan?
There's a lot of candidates out there. I personally want to go offensive minded. We've gone defensive minded with the last two hirings with Vance Joseph and Vic Fangio, but that was John Elway as the general manager. Actually, the interesting story about that with Vance Joseph is apparently Elway was totally sold on him, didn't really want to interview anybody else, but decided, let's interview some more people. With Vic Fangio, he took his little bit more of this time, but George Payton is going to take a lot of time. Personally, I want an offensive-minded coach, whether that'll be Eric Bieniemy out of Kansas City, Nathaniel Hackett, who's in Green Bay, Luke Getzey, Brian Callahan. You know about Kellen Moore because of his
Hmm.
ties to the Dallas Cowboys, the
Fortunately.
offensive coordinator, or uh, or Kevin O'Connell. So I think they're really thinking offensive minded. But the problem I have with any of these candidates, I love Eric Bieniemy, by the way, just because he's a Colorado guy, went to the University of Colorado, but he's not a play caller. But we've seen what he did with Patrick Mahomes. But the problem I have with this list is there's no Doug Peterson, there's no Jim Caldwell. You don't have guys that have been to the Super Bowl or have been head coaches in this league. So that's the only problem I have with it. But I do want to go offensive minded.
Okay, cool, cool. And you know what's so crazy? I've been hearing a lot of rumblings. I know obviously you guys, and that's why I thought about too, like as far as now, you really got to get an offensive guy, especially for a team like you guys, where you essentially you need that quarterback. I know a lot of people have been really linking you and Gerard Mayo together. Like it's almost people want to just link you guys two with Gerard Mayo.
And I don't see it. I mean, we've done the New England Patriots type of thing before. It didn't work out. Well,
That's
Gerard
right.
Mayo, who's the linebackers coach, yeah, exactly.
Right,
Would
right.
Gerard Mayo be better than Josh McDaniels? I can't say that. I don't think Bill Belichick is an amazing coach, but his coaching tree is not very good.
Right. And I think it's weird because a lot of people I've seen like people making comparisons to him as like the next Mike Vrabel or potentially like a Mike Tomlin, like a junior Mike Tomlin. But I think, like you said, I think the one who I'm really linking to, and you also brought that point up, it's got to be Doug Peterson. I think he's a guy I think should be a strong candidate for this job because I think to me even in that Philly situation, I think he got a raw deal, because it's just a simple fact of just how, Roseman and all those guys are. So I think he's a guy I think he should have actually still been the current head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles at this point, in my personal opinion. But I think for a guy like him, like you said, he's a Super Bowl winning coach. And he did that with a backup quarterback. So just imagine, what he can do. Like if you can get a get a stability at the quarterback position, I think he should definitely get a serious. It's weird. Like a lot of this year, it's kind of weird. Like so many names that are emerging, but then it's some that are constant that you would think like needs to be there. And I understand there is a like you want new blood to be injected in the NFL coaching realm, but sometimes hey, it's some guys that's veterans, and these kind of coaches that can bring you over the hump. So you know,
I completely agree with that. I mean, we've seen too many new bloods here, with the Broncos. I brought up Josh McDaniels. Obviously, it didn't work. Vance Joseph, first time head coach, didn't work.
yep.
Obviously, our last head coach, at least he had a lot of defensive coaching experience, didn't work. And if you look
Yeah,
at the coaches the Broncos have won Super Bowls with, Mike Shanahan, he was the head coach of the Raiders. Gary Kubiak, he was the head coach of the Texans, obviously spent a lot of time with the Broncos. And even John Fox, he was the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. So I think for us, we definitely need a guy that has the experience of a head coach because you need to have these guys accountable. That's what bothered me about Vic Fangio, especially with our offense. And you saw our offense back in
yeah,
October, how bad it
yeah.
was.
Halloween.
But
Yeah,
it never changed because Vic Fangio, for whatever reason, did not want to get rid of Pat Shurmur, the offensive coordinator. And his motto was death by inches. Well, he never really did death by inches because if he did, he would have done a lot of different things. So I definitely think if we can get a offensive minded head coach, that might actually help the development of Drew Lock. We haven't really developed great quarterbacks. We've been lucky enough to get Peyton Manning here, but before that or after that, it's been Brock Osweiler. Well, he left town. Joe Flacco. Well, that didn't really work. And then you look in the draft, Paxton Lynch. Last I heard he was in the Canadian Football League. I don't know if he's still
oh
there.
boy,
And of course, Drew
oh
Lock.
boy.
Drew Lock isn't planned out. So I just think an offensive minded coach might help our development. And I definitely
Yeah.
hope George Payton gives a call to Doug Peterson or Jim Caldwell, especially Doug Peterson, because he has
Yeah.
the jewelry.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep. And that was and it's funny because I remember, I that guy linked Doug Peterson everywhere, like Miami, all kinds of places. So, who's to say where he'll land, but most definitely. So, um, which coaching candidate do you want to see as a head coach?
Well, if we're going just coordinators, I would love Eric Bieniemy. His ties to Colorado, the way he has held Patrick Mahomes, and the fact that it's home. Colorado's home. Plus, he's an offensive minded coach. I think he would definitely help the development of Drew Lock or whoever quarterback we have. And of course, I want Doug Peterson. Now, with the candidates that they're interviewing, I would like to see Eric Bieniemy. I know they're going to interview him, but the question I have about Eric is, would he really want to leave his situation in Kansas City? Because you're probably most likely going to be the next head coach once Andy Reid leaves. Plus, you have a cushy job. All you're doing is helping the development of Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill. I could go on and on about their team, but it's just the one thing that scares me is he has not done the play calls, although he knows offenses. So I'd like to see Eric Bieniemy if we're going offensive coordinators, or Doug Peterson.
Yeah, I feel you. I got somewhat of a solid list who I look at guys who I think should be deserving of a head coach. Obviously, young blood, a new blood. I want to see Kevin O'Connell, and I think more so it's a personal thing with me because obviously Kevin O'Connell used to be our offensive coordinator in Washington, under Jay Gruden, and also I forgot he was in he had, and obviously during the Shanahan's he was I forgot what position he was during that regime with us. And that just adds to, I think that'd be a great thing to add to Sean McVay's coaching tree to have him as well. And so I think he's ready to become a head coach, especially in this league, as far as when it comes to like in the now league is more offensive centric. I like that. I definitely want to see Todd Bowles get another shot opportunity to coach in the NFL, another Washington football guy, former safety. So a lot of it, Joe and I always make these Washington football team like type of references from time to time. So my bias is showing half the time. So so that's how I am. And like you said, we talked about Doug Peterson and also Eric Bieniemy. I think especially Eric Bieniemy. But like you said, I don't. The thing is with him is almost like you like like you said, I would be more inclined to stay because the simple fact of, hey, I got a quarterback that's 26 years old. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. I got an emerging offense, and I think now they're playing in a different type of dimension now. So now it's not, they can like dink and dunk you now versus how they used to just go for the home run hits. And now they just hitting singles and doubles and just and doing their thing. So then if you go somewhere, like you said, is he going to be there for 2 or 3 years or whatever? But the beautiful thing about it is he can always come back in some form of fashion, potentially. It may not be the OC if you go back to Kansas City, but it could be something, there.
Well, exactly, and I just don't know how much interest he has being a head coach. I mean, I've heard there's things that he's not a good interviewer, but I don't think that really matters. I just don't know how much interest he has being a head coach because of
Right.
the way he coaches in Kansas City. Why would you go anywhere else?
Exactly. And then I never understood this whole thing. He's not a good interviewer. And I'm thinking to myself, like, if he's not a good interviewer, then we can fix that. We can fix you not being a good interviewer. Like, I mean, that's stuff that we can fix that. Because I'm like, and that's the thing I don't understand. They say he's not a good interviewer, but then Nick Sirianni gets a job and he looks crazy. Even though I'll give him credit now to this day. He made the playoffs, but initially that first press conference looked doozy. So I'll be thinking to myself, like, if he was able to get it, land a job like that, Eric Bieniemy's situation could be fixed. It could be remedied.
Right, exactly. I mean, we don't know what's been said in closed doors. Maybe they just figured he's not a
Exactly.
good fit, and that's why they don't want him as a head coach, or he's quiet in interviews. I have no idea, but I
Right.
just know Eric does deserve a shot. But like we've said, is why would you leave Kansas City? I mean, I know
Yeah.
I'm going to go locally here with the Denver Broncos. I know when Gary Kubiak was a candidate for the Houston Texans job, he did not want to go at all. He actually had to
Yeah.
be talked into it by Mike Shanahan and say, hey, this is your chance to be a head coach. Go get it. And of course, he comes back to Denver as a head coach for 2 years, leads us to a Super Bowl victory. So you're definitely right. People can go, but they'll come back. Or Josh McDaniels with the Denver Broncos didn't do so well. He goes back to New England. So yeah, I think he definitely has a home in Kansas City.
Yeah. And yeah, right. So the final question for our NFL coaching carousel. So, and your thoughts, do you think Brian Flores will get a job, not necessarily a head coaching job, but just any job at this point? Will he get a job this year?
He should. I mean, he's a good football mind. What Miami did there, I was really surprised. I like everybody, but Brian Flores is a good football mind. He'll be back into coaching, whether that'll be as a coordinator or as one of the coaches. Who's to say? But I think he would definitely enhance somebody's staff for sure.
Yeah, and I think like it's gonna be one of the things where it might be a situation. And I'm thinking, I think he will get a job. It's probably gonna be more like a coordinator potentially, but I definitely think I can see him as a head coach of a team within the next 2 years, like for certain. Like
Oh, I
he might even
completely
get
agree. I mean,
one of these open jobs potentially.
I know he was going to interview for Chicago, and I wrote on some post on Facebook, "Well, keep him there. Don't let him go because he's actually a pretty good football mind when you get down
Yeah.
to it."
Yeah, and then essentially, and it's really more so of, and if he can hire like almost like what's going on with Carolina, where essentially Matt Rule is going to be there if he hires what they call a rock star offensive coordinator, which you know, and I hope they do not get Pep Hamilton. I was like, that is going to be huge if they can get him. I think that's going to save his job for a good little minute.
And well, and I've also heard Jay Gruden could be interested in the job. The only one that I don't
Yeah,
think makes a whole lot of sense is Bill O'Brien. Bill O'Brien, great coach, but we all know about Bill O'Brien. In terms of offensive, he's a
yeah,
great offensive mind, but as a coordinator or coach, no. We saw what he did in Houston, just started getting rid of people. That's what cost him his job. I just don't think
right.
that'll actually work out in Carolina with him and Matt Rule.
I know, right? It's because like that's to me like it's like two alphas, and yeah, I don't think that's going. I don't think that's going to mix, but yeah, that's going to be interesting. I think if Brian Flores does get what we call a quote unquote a rock star offense coordinator, and I think it can work. And I think that's what it really boils down to. Like if he can get a good offensive coordinator, I definitely think that that would be a nice destination for him. So at all, and being especially in that division, really the tough NFC North. I definitely think he'll add some more star power to that coaching at this point. And because we obviously they're still open in Minnesota. You still got LaFleur in Green Bay, and then you got Dan Campbell, who's like he's going to keep his job, and but
Yeah, for sure. I was surprised that Dan Campbell would say, but the guy's crazy. His first press conference, I could tell he wanted to break kneecaps and whatnot. I'm like,
I know it was like
who is this guy? Is that really going to motivate the players? What?
right. And they play really hard for him, which so it's to a point where that's a shock. And then also another offensive coordinator opening is well not opening, but as far as guy he got rid of Anthony Lynn. So that's another one where that's an interesting if he resurfaces as far as a coordinator position potentially, because you really give him, you can essentially give him somewhat of a pass because offensively, we didn't really think they were going to do nothing offensively anyway. So it's like you give him a pass, and then you rely on those Chargers year, especially last year with Justin Herbert. Even though that was a part of more so Pep Hamilton running that offense last. Well, he was the quarterbacks coach, I think, with Pep Hamilton last year with it. But here no there. But you look at that as a situation where you know you might look at he might have a situation where he could become an OC again somewhere potentially.
And I would really like to see Anthony Lynn go as an offense coordinator. I saw him twice a year, and honestly, it wasn't his offense that cost him his job. It was the defense.
Defense.
And like you said,
Yep.
what he did with Justin Herbert last year. And I do think Anthony Lynn is a pretty good offensive mind. He knows the game. He knows how to game plan. He will adjust his game plan if things aren't working. So Anthony Lynn is a pretty interesting football mind. I wouldn't mind him in Denver if whoever the offensive, if we end up getting a head coach that's a defensive minded. I wouldn't mind Anthony Lynn as our offensive coordinator, although I don't really see it. But I definitely like Anthony Lynn. I just think he got a raw deal in LA with the Chargers. It's hard to remember if they're LA or San Diego, but they're definitely LA.
Right. And you see and it's almost kind of like what's going on now. I mean, it's literally the same. It's something about your rival where it's like, well, one of your rivals, not your main one, but it's something about that franchise. Just it seems like it's getting to a point where it's still not executing in the fourth quarter. And it's still happening, even with a new head coach.
And you could even blame the head coach for the overtime loss
The
on
timeouts.
Sunday, where I couldn't figure. I was watching the clock, going, "Why are they taking timeout? Doesn't he know that if he gets a tie, that they'll both go to the playoffs? What's better than that? At least you're in." But the fact of the matter is the Chargers have been a mess, especially in the fourth quarters for a while. Unfortunately for them.
Right, and then that's what killed me because you got to think about that play. Because if they were trying to play to win that game, they would have ran that out of bounds and stopped the clock. They let the clock run, and I'm like, they're giving you an opportunity to make the playoffs. Like, because normally you think about
exactly,
it, they killed that clock for a reason, and then you seen it. I forgot who was talking to Austin Eckler at the end of the game, and then he was like, "Oh." I forgot who he was talking to.
I saw the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember either, but I do. I did see that picture, and even Derek Carr admitted once they took their timeout, we'll just try to go win the game rather than go for the tie. So they were playing for the tie, and I just don't understand the strategy by the Chargers. But hey, the Chargers are the Chargers. There's a reason why they're not in the playoffs,
right? Because you weren't going to get the ball back, so there was really no need to stop the clock. It's almost to a point where, hey, I mean, just stop them at this point, and then you were going to stop them because the clock was going, so you were good. Like, and I can understand if it was like 3rd and 10, and you gonna get the ball back, and they gonna punt it to you. You take that time out to stop the clock, but no, they're running, they're staying in bounds so they can keep the clock going. Like, and you gonna stop it for them so they can get an extra play. It's just like
I couldn't figure out that strategy. You're right. We can sit here and second guess, but the point is they should have gone for the tie and not taken a timeout, and then we would have had a different playoffs with some of these matchups. But it is what it is.
Right. Right. So yeah, let's most definitely. So let's get into the Super Wildcard preview. So we'll get that squared away. So Jordan, who is your most dangerous NFC and AFC wildcard team?
Well, in the AFC, I have to look at the New England Patriots. They have a pretty good defense. Plus, you can never go against Bill Belichick in the playoffs. We know his history. We know what he's going to bring to the table. So the fact of the matter is, if they're lucky, they're playing an opponent. Once we get into our picks, they're playing an opponent they know fairly well. If they beat the Buffalo Bills, then you're looking at the second round. And Bill Belichick, if you give him time to game plan, he will game plan. He knows what to do, and he's been in this position before. And they're going with the rookie quarterback. So Mac Jones, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what he will do in his first playoffs. As for the NFC, right now I'm going with the San Francisco 49ers only because of their matchup with the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas, we've seen them be hot and cold. If they're cold and Dak Prescott is throwing the ball right on the money and his receivers are dropping it, we know that the offense of the San Francisco 49ers with Jimmy Garoppolo will march down and score points and get points. And of course, I like their head coach, Shanahan. He knows how to game plan. We saw it when he was with the Atlanta Falcons, of course, as the offensive coordinator, even though that they kind of blew a huge Super Bowl lead. But if you get Kyle Shanahan in there game planning, I think he'll have a good game plan. And you have George Kittle there. So you have one of the best tight ends that besides Travis Kelce. So that makes it rather dangerous. Plus, you have the running game of Sony Michel, plus a Debo Samuel to catch the football. So it's a team to watch out for sure.
Yeah, and that's funny. I actually have the same one as far as, especially from the AFC perspective, New England. Pretty much, you just, and the thing about all of this, they played each other once before. So is this going to be like that Monday Night Football affair, or is it going to be that Week 17 where Josh Allen goes off? The biggest, and no pun intended, but the biggest wild card is going to be Mac Jones. Like, what are you going to get out of him in this game? Where, and it's just one of those interesting things where he's going to kind of be one of the keys that you can, that if New England is successful, it's going to be, something where, not necessarily he's going to have a Brady like type of effort, but I think if he has a solid game, that's definitely going to help them couple, like you said, Jordan, with the defense. So I look at New England, and this, like you said, the Belichick rest on the road. The elements are going to be there. It's going to be a nice cold night in Buffalo, which is definitely could play in New England's favor. And then also San Francisco in
For
the
sure.
NFC. And San Francisco, I think, like you said, they're solid defense. Jimmy G, he's another one. When he's good, he's good. Like if we get the good Jimmy G, I think Dallas is going to be in a world of trouble. The question mark is, will Trent Williams play? I think that's going to be another one. I think they definitely need him, especially going against guys like that vaunted front seven for Dallas. Guys like Randy Gregory, those guys just getting that, helping help as far as stopping that penetration of their defensive line and getting to Jimmy G. And then, like you said, the dual threat. I think no one at this point, I think, can really stop Debo Samuel at this point. I think, at this point, him as a dual threat, he can do anything. Like, hell, he can run it, he can, he can catch it, and hell, he can throw it. Because he had, in that San Francisco game, he had a touchdown pass in that one. So you that's one thing where he's a Swiss Army knife that I think Dallas is going to have fits with.
But, for sure. So it'll be interesting because in both of those games, if Jones has a terrible game and the moment's too big for him, the Bills are going to come out and they're going to win this football game. They're going to definitely try to get after him just because of the fact that it's his first ever playoff game. And then, of course, we just touched on it with the 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo, can he have the strong arm? Because we saw it against the Rams for, do or die. I mean, that was like a playoff game. He actually came out firing, even though that he had something wrong with his thumb, but he looked great. You couldn't tell he was hurt.
Yeah, and now this is another one where they go on the road and take care of business potentially. So yeah, they're by far as a very, very dangerous wild card team. So Jordan, which AFC or NFC or AFC NFC divisional winner is on upset alert this week?
I still have to go with the I have two. I have Cincinnati and the Buffalo Bills. Cincinnati hasn't won a playoff game since 1990. Yes, they're going against the Raiders, but the fact of the matter is they still haven't ended that drought. There have been so many close calls with them, especially in 2015 15, where they actually should have knocked off the Pittsburgh Steelers, but too many boneheaded mistakes and penalties cost them that game.
Yes.
I also have the Buffalo Bills just because of the fact that they're playing the New England Patriots. In the NFC, we touched on it's the Dallas Cowboys because of who they're playing.
Yeah. Um, like you said, the one I'm really looking for, especially the AFC, is going to be Cincy. I think, like you said, same thing goes where pretty much every time they've been in the playoffs thus far, we look at them as someone has been a favorite, especially at home. I look at you think about dating back to I forgot what year it was. That's the Carson Palmer got hurt in that first possession against Pittsburgh. That was kind of their year. I thought they were going to take care of business. And another Pittsburgh matchup, that's the Pac-Man Jones, Vontez Burfict, all that drama that happened with those plays, and obviously the Antonio Brown injury. So that was another one where we thought Cincinnati that the exorcism was going to be done. Luckily, they don't have to play Pittsburgh this time, but they're going against a hot Raiders team. I think at this point where Derek Carr, he's doing his thing once again. This will he'll finally get an opportunity to have a playoff game in his career. So definitely well deserved, because obviously that 2016 team, that was a team that he was pretty much an MVP candidate and ended up breaking his leg a few weeks before the end of the regular season. So this gives him an opportunity, and then just what they've came along so far. And then I think if they have, I think one of their advantages, if they can get to Joe Burrow, I think that could be big, because I think essentially you look at Joe Burrow's been sacked, like 40 plus times. So if they can get to him, and try to see if they can I wouldn't say contain, but I just say at least control as far as that wide receiver trio. I think that's going to be probably their biggest issue. And it's more so like I think it's going to be like a trenches game, and like you look at so I look at Cincy as one of those, just for the whole simple fact of just haven't won a playoff game in 30 plus years. And that's bizarre. Like, that's so crazy to think like that. And then the other one, call
You're,
me crazy, but mm. No, you good? What you saying, Jordan?
oh, I don't remember now. I was going to say
Oh,
something
you
about
good?
Cincinnati. Now I totally forgot. I'm good.
All right. Well, if you remember, just let me know. All right. So now I think the other team that's on upset alert is going to be the Rams. And it's weird because even though the Cardinals are limping in the playoffs, they're losing the last 4 of their last 5 games. But for some odd reason, I still don't want to give up on them quite yet, because you just think even last week, I don't know, their unexplainable loss to Seattle last week. But then, in that 5-game, that 4-game, 4 out of 5 losses, they did end up being Dallas. So it's one of those things where it's like, what what Arizona team are we gonna see? Are we gonna be the ones that they beat earlier in the season and took care of business, or is this gonna be or it's just gonna be the team that's just been been just terrible the last 6 weeks? So I don't, it's interesting, and then there's just so much pressure with the Rams, especially with just everything, their star-studded lineup. Obviously, with Super Bowl being in LA, and kind of like the win now type of mentality. So they're one I'm really looking at on upset alert.
I could say that. I mean, you look at the Cardinals, great quarterback in Kyler Murray, especially if he gets outside the pocket, that'll buy him time to either run with it or throw to AJ Green. Unfortunately, you don't have DeAndre Hopkins because he's on injured reserve, but you still have Zach Ertz. You still have a pretty, I would say, stout defense. But if you look at the Rams, like you said, there's so much pressure for them to win. Super Bowl's there. I like their defense with Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, and of course Von Miller. It would be interesting to see if Von Miller can actually win a Super Bowl with the Rams. But even if you look at their offense with Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp, and it's just, if Stafford turns the ball over, which I know Arizona's going to try to go ahead and blitz him, that is going to change the course of that game. Kyler Murray, it just depends on which form we have. If we get the form where they've won those games, then they'll be fine. But if we get what we saw last week, there's no way that they're going to beat the Rams.
Big time. Let's see. So, what is the wild card matchup that you are looking forward to watch? Let me pull that up for you. Wild card matchup to watch. What you got?
Well, I think most of these games are going to be pretty close because they're playoff games, except for the Kansas City Pittsburgh game. I don't think anyone's giving Pittsburgh a chance, and I think Kansas City's just going to run all over them. But I
Yeah.
think we hit it just a minute ago. I'm going with really the Arizona Cardinals versus the LA Rams because of the fact of that should be one of the better games of the weekend, and it's Monday Night
Yeah.
Football. But you have, like we talked about with Aaron Donald, Jalen Ramsey, Von Miller versus Kyler Murray in that offense. So I have to go with the Rams. It's Rams and Cardinals is the one matchup to watch. But then again, most of these games will be close down to the final possession or even into the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter.
Yeah, big time. I'm looking at the Cowboys and 49ers. I think that might potentially be, I think maybe the game of the of probably at least the Sunday slate. I think out of all the three matchups, I think they'll probably live up to the bill. This another one, another classic. Could be, one of those classic playoff, battles with Dallas and 49ers of past. It may not be, the 1981 champion, NFC championship or 1994, what have you. But I think this is going to be another good matchup between two good teams. Obviously, Dallas coming in, scoring, number one in scoring, average over 31 points a game. You got San Francisco, who is pretty much in the top 10 as far as scoring defense. So that's going to be kind of an interesting. And like we talked about it, just as far as San Francisco, pretty much the battle of two Swiss Army knives. And I already talked about essentially Debo, his capabilities, and then also the other Swiss Army knife on Dallas end is Michael Parsons. He's a guy that pretty much he's the Swiss Army knife. He can kill you in so many different ways. Obviously, I'm a victim, so I've been a victim twice. So
luckily, we weren't. Luckily, we weren't a victim again with them. We beat them pretty
right,
handedly. So
right. They need the recipe. Joe, you got to give Cal Shanahan and them boys a recipe because we don't need Dallas to advance to the second round. We need the recipe.
pretty easy. Just run the football. That's all we did. We ran the
Yep.
football, I believe, like 30 or 40 times. That's all you need to do. Then you don't have Dak Prescott out there or Zeke Elliott or that offense. So if you can control the clock, that's your answer right there. Whether or not, I
Exactly.
think Kyle Shanahan knows that. Whether or not they will look at that game plan, just put on the Broncos tape, see what we did. Just use that. I mean, I know Dallas had a couple of droughts, but still, we controlled
Yeah.
the clock against them. So if you can run the football, that's key.
Yeah, and that's the thing and that's the good thing about it. With Debo, you can have him in certain sets, and you can have him as a running back and run. So, you have that opportunity. And then also with your other, um, you know, running back because it's really pretty much. It remind me of even though Cal obviously is Mike's son, but as far as his running back room, anybody can get it done. That's how I remember how the Broncos used to be in the late '90s, early 2000s. They put anybody in there. Orlandis Gray, you remember Orlandis Gray? Oh, what was his name? Yeah, Orlandis Gray won it. Yeah, all kind of
Was it
guys.
Landis
Clinton,
Gary,
Orlandis Gary, yeah, Orlandis
Clinton
Gary, yeah, yeah.
Portis?
Clinton Portis,
Let's see. We had Mike Anderson. I mean, I'm
Anderson,
trying to think who else was
right,
even
right,
Peyton Hillis, who we ended up trading to Cleveland. I mean, yeah, you're right. These are unknown
yes.
guys, and Kyle is starting to learn that all you have to do is put a guy back, have the zone blocking, and you're good.
Right, no, definitely who shot at the Peyton Hillis, the cover of Mad 2012. We ain't forget you about you, Peyton. We ain't forget about you, Peyton, the other Peyton. But yeah, and like you said, and they have always have a stable regardless of who's there, because I mean it's that's why like it's almost feel like it's an embarrassing of riches, especially when it comes to San Francisco, because we definitely thought initially, especially going into these going into the season, we looked at a lot like Trey Sermon, he's going to be one of those guys that we looked to, that was going to potentially be like the offensive rookie of the year, obviously with his injury being hurt. And you just got they got so many guys that can just take care of business. You even got was it Eli Mitchell? Eli Mitchell's on the verge of almost 1,000 yard back, which is still, you think to yourself like that's another. It's a testament to San Francisco offensive line, and then also with Kyle Shanahan and his tutelage. So it's one of the things where, hey, like you said, just run that football, and you got some horses to run that ball. So but yeah, like you said, because you don't want to get you don't want to get in a potentially offensive showdown with Dak Prescott potentially. But yeah, so yeah, all right. So it is prediction time, Jordan. So we got 6 matchups. So the first matchup of the afternoon on Saturday, we got the Cincinnati Bengals and the Las Vegas Raiders. Who you got, Jordan?
I actually have the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm just hoping that they end Las Vegas's season. Yes, they've been through a lot, but journey ends here in the wild card round as the Bengals move
Yeah,
on.
I agree with you as well, Jordan. Free Mike Mayock. All right. All right. We got the New England Patriots visiting Buffalo, the Bills. Who you got, Jordan?
I've been so back and forth with this game just because I can see both teams winning, especially if the Bills turn it over. But I just think Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, Emmanuel Sanders, Cole Beasley at home, they get the win. I'm going with the Buffalo Bills.
Bills. Okay. Call me crazy. Give me the New England Patriots over the Buffalo Bills. All right. So that wraps up Saturday. So we got a triple header slate on Saturday. That's going to start with the defending Super Bowl champions at home against the Fail Eagle Fails, aka the Philadelphia Eagles. Who you got, Jordan?
I can't take Philadelphia, even though that they have a good
All
quarterback in
right.
Jalen Hurts. I have to go Tampa Bay just because Tom Brady, Rob Gronkowski, Mike Evans. That's all you need. And plus, that
Yeah.
defense is pretty good with Shaq Barrett and linebackers. Still can't believe the Broncos let him go, but Tampa Bay easily
All
wins this
right.
game.
Yeah, I think this is gonna be one of the ones between cross between between um them and Kansas City and Pittsburgh is going to be kind of one of those like maybe a lopsided game potentially. They needs to be the two that'll be kind of a duds. So yeah, give me the Bucks as well over the Bucks. We got the 49ers at the Arlington football team, which aka the Dallas Cowboys. Who you got, Jordan?
This is my one upset. I'm going with San Francisco. I just feel like
Okay.
there's something about Jimmy Garoppolo going into Jerry's world and knocking off the Dallas Cowboys. Again, you just have to run the ball like we've been talking about. I think they'll do that. They'll control the clock. I have them in a tight game, though.
Yeah. Yeah, give me the 49ers over the Arlington football team. I always root for my old OC. Shout out to Cal Shanahan. So yeah, we got that. All right. And then the Sunday night game, we got the Kansas City Chiefs and the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, it's going to be Ben Roethlisberger's retirement party because Kansas City easily wins this as they get the win at home. I just don't see how Pittsburgh keeps up, even with Najee Harris running the football. Kansas
Yeah.
City's defense is way too good, and their offense, you have to score at least 24, 25, 26 points, and I just don't see that from the Pittsburgh offense. Kansas City wins this, and it'll be at least by 2 scores.
Yeah, and I blame Brandon Staley for this. This could have been you, but you
We
called a
can.
timeout.
Yeah,
Right. So a part of me is like, I didn't want Big Ben to go out like this. I wanted him to kind of have that good game against Baltimore and just call it the last dance for sure. But this gonna get ugly. It's almost gonna be similar to, because what was that, week 17 or week, I forgot when they played, week 16 or week 18, just a few weeks ago. And I hope he got his family with him again this time, because this is it. I'm sorry, I don't have no shot whatsoever. That man Ben is. I blame Brandon Staley for this. Why you do this to this man?
we might as well. I
Because
just wonder if they were scared to go to Kansas City. That's my only thing is, did you really want to see the Chiefs 3 times?
exactly. So then to round out Super Wildcard Weekend, we got the Monday Night Affair. We have the Rams and the Cardinals. Who you got, Jordan?
It's going to be a really close game. I just feel like the defense of the Los Angeles Rams is better. I got to go with the Rams, and I'm going to say it's going to be a 3 or 4 point game.
Yeah, I think the Rams will pull it off at home. And like you said, I think it's going to be closer than I think a lot of people are going to see, because obviously, if you look at how Arizona kind of backslided in the playoffs, a lot of people probably going to take that in stock and thinking, hey, this team just lost to Seattle last week, so and another one where you think to yourself, this team could have hosted this game, which is crazy. Is that when we look at this type of situation going forward, like, man, this team actually could have hosted a playoff game, because all they really had to do at that time was to win. And, the Rams backpedaled and actually won this division. So, we're going to just see. We're curious how this Arizona team is going to be.
I was just going to say, if you look at their last 3 games, they could have just won one, and then they wouldn't have to play on the road with the Rams. But it's definitely going to be a close game. As we both know, these teams know each other well, and they know their weaknesses and where to, their strengths too. So it'll be an interesting game. I think you couldn't have asked for a better Monday Night Football to round out the wild card weekend. Really, you couldn't, unless it was the Bills and the Patriots. But Rams and Arizona, good choice to end the wild card round.
Yep, absolutely. So we'll put a bow on this week's Couch Coach Live. Definitely, once again, appreciate you, Jordan, for coming on. So before we head on out, social media, any upcoming projects, what you got?
So you can follow me at Sports Scoop One on Twitter, and of course, read my blog that I write Mondays through Fridays at sports-scoop.com. Of course, catch me on the NBA Carousel doing either mostly the Phoenix Suns and sometimes the Denver Nuggets. That'll be on Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, absolutely. Also, as well, I'll be on the NBA Carousel as well. My NBA Carousel brethren. I cover the LA Clippers on Monday nights as well, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Also, Couch Coach Live, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, anywhere that you get your podcast. We're there as well. Also, the Washington Football Guys, Friday nights, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And also, definitely a huge shout out to our good folks at Built Bar. Head over to built.com. Use our promo code off the ball, and then bet US. Head over to betus.com. Use our promo code off the ball, where you get a 125% sign up bonus by using our code in all caps. And once again, Jordan, appreciate you for coming on for this week's Couch Coach Live.
Appreciate you having me.
No doubt. But yeah, so great show once again. And we'll catch you guys next week. This has been this week's Couch Coach Live, and we out.